person asked that, Marilyn. A lot of us, like myself, I'm a caregiver right now, so I'm very disheveled. So I like to tune in and just put my name up there. No need to see me right now. So thank you.
Hey, Evelyn, that's absolutely understandable. No worries about that whatsoever. We've got Jim Offit here. Jim, you're labeled as Luke Lorenz trying to steal my job.
Well, it's, oh, I know. It said put a name in there. I thought it was, I guess I was supposed to put my own name in that. I'm looking for I'm looking for the name of the conference and everything. So, okay. So I'm here as also Luke Lorenz, huh?
Hey, that's fine. Jim, I'm going to hand it over to you. I want to mention one thing, actually, for your sake in particular. Yeah. Jim recommended a novel that you can get on Amazon called The Warfighter. Really interesting story. It's fictional, but it's written by somebody who obviously has a lot of military experience, and it was about this fictional war with North Korea and what that might actually look like. I thought it was a very entertaining book. Read through the whole thing in about 2 days. Great weekend read or vacation or on a plane or something. So Jim, great recommendation. It was really a lot of fun to read that.
Yeah, it was pretty realistic for what a pilot goes through to get to a carrier and all that kind of stuff. So, okay.
Who is the author?
You're gonna have to look. I don't remember the author.
I'll look that up right.
The EA-6B pilot, right? I don't.
Oh, that's okay. I'll find it.
Okay, so I'm labeled Luke today, huh? I'm trying to. I don't see any. I just see people's pictures, but I don't see that. I see. We live and learn on Teams. It wouldn't come up automatically, so I had to put all of the information in by hand. ID number, password. I'm not used to doing that. It's supposed to come up automatically.
Who is the real Luke Lorenz?
I've been asking that question for years.
So John's here. John, why don't we start with fly-in update?
John, I think we're having an issue with your audio. I'm not sure why.
It sounds like a flock of mosquitoes is going through one of those bug zappers.
Yeah, John, it's definitely your audio for some reason. I'm not sure why. When I go ahead to mute you, are you hearing the feedback that we're getting, John? No. Would you mind maybe logging out and logging back in? I hate to ask you to do that, but there's definitely some strange interference that's coming from your audio. Yeah, when I mute John, it goes away, so it's definitely coming from his account, unfortunately. Jim, you're on mute.
I was trying to get Sinclair's attention. Who's that?
No, it's still John because I just muted him again, so it's still on his end, unfortunately. Jim, do you want to try and start with someone else? John, we're still just getting feedback from you. We can't hear at all what you're saying, John. We're just getting feedback from you. Okay. All right, maybe we should start with someone else, Jim.
Well, go ahead and Luke, update us on this database.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that I know one of the most important efforts of the regional vice presidents for legislative affairs is making sure that there is a council vice president for legislative affairs in each particular council. This is a very, very difficult task, and I don't think we've ever got it 100% right or even anywhere close to that, which is, understandable. It's difficult. What we want to at least be able to do is identify which councils currently have someone in that role, even if it's the council president just taking on multiple roles, or if they have a separate person that's specifically listed as the CVPLA. We are able to get that information from our latest round of annual reports. It won't be out until later this month, but our membership department is able to run a query for that information, compile it, and then send it out. So I will get that to all of the RVPs as soon as we have it. Please understand that this is a difficult task, a difficult undertaking. We've been working on this for years and years. So if your region is missing some CVPLAs or whatever the case may be, don't worry about it, but do just over the course of time, start reaching out to some of the councils that don't have a vice president for legislative affairs and just talk to them and see, what the issue might be. You have a lot of councils. John Kask and I experienced this in Mid-Atlantic when we did our first virtual fly-in. You have councils that will flat out respond, we don't want anything to do with politics. We're here to help the Sea Services, get out of our face with this politics stuff. We don't want anything to do with it. And when that's the case, please pass them over to us so we can at least talk to them and say, well, this is a big part of our mission in support of the Sea Services. Advocacy is, one leg of our mission. So, if that's the argument, then maybe we can kind of steer them towards getting more involved. But anyway, bottom line is, hopefully we will have a clear picture of all those CVPLAs by the end of the month when we get that report. We can share that with all our region vice presidents and then kind of move forward from there. Just wanted to give everyone that update. Oh, and I'll mention one other thing. We are transitioning to a new database called Nimble, which is going to be supposedly really fantastic. It's above my level, whole lot of tech stuff, but that also will be able to run these queries very, very quickly for whatever you need. Members or Navy League members in a particular district, or council vice presidents for legislative affairs, whatever information we have, you should be able to access it very, very easily and very quickly. That won't be until the end of the year, though. For now, we're just going to get this initial report at the end of this month. So that's that.
Okay, so one of the advantages of being the second Luke, I was able to admit 2 people into. So John, how are you doing now? And I let Jim Sembrand in.
Okay, can you hear me or it's still static?
Yeah, now you're good now.
Okay. The issue on the agenda was having to do with in-person fly-in for November. And I did report what we were discussing during our previous meeting to the head of the committee, Joe Jamborone, and he passed on a recommendation that we not hold an in-person fly-in this year because we're doing it virtually, and we couldn't find another date that could work for this year, and that we would defer for the next Vice President for Legislative Affairs, who will be elected in June, to look at the issue for next year. So at this point in time, we will not have in-person fly-in. We will just do it virtually, learn how well it goes, and if it works well, then that will be a data point for the next NVPLA to take on board. If it looks like we need to do an in-person fly-in because it'll be more effective to get to the appropriate people, then we'll try to get in early next year to see whether we can find a time that will work. Piggybacking on the November meeting doesn't work. It's not the best time to have an in-person fly-in if you want to impact on ongoing authorization and appropriations, which hopefully will be done by then. And the calendar, if we're going to do it in person, will probably have to be coordinated with the headquarters at a different time. So that's where that is. And we'll leave it at that unless people have some questions.
Okay, any questions on that? We had talked before, even if we're going to do that fly-in, we were going to concentrate on very senior members of committees, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be waiting to get people in. There's Steve Tagliarotto in the lobby, Luke. I can see if I can do it.
I hear you guys.
Okay. So that's so what it is, we'll get back to the planning and execution of a virtual, and so everybody should have gotten the list that Luke sent out with the new members of Congress. So that's the first thing, and I can't remember, it had new members. I looked, I found mine, but did it also have new committee assignments, Luke, or we haven't gotten there yet? New
No, it
defense
should,
committee people?
it should have all the new committee assignments that we pulled from Quorum. They should have everything up to date and up to speed. Also on that note, we're completing the district profiles as we speak. Hopefully by the end of this month, that'll be done. And that has a little bit more information in there, including some of our customized data points, such as how many Jones Act jobs are in a particular state, how much money a state gets in defense funding, and what weapon systems they make, and so on and so forth. So the spreadsheet that we sent is just the bare bones. Here's some new members of Congress in your region, scheduler information, stuff like that. The district profiles will have a bit more information, for you going forward.
Okay, so remember, we're going to basically run the virtual from the conclusion of Sea Air Space up until the National Convention. So that gives us essentially 2 months, April and May, to do that. So, I don't think we have all the material yet. We have the briefing that they did at the revealing of the maritime policy, which was a great brief, Sinclair. I've already used it, shown it to people. So I appreciate you doing that. And I think reading through that yourself and looking at that would be worthwhile. And then I think for our next meeting of us, or unless we do it as part of the training, we'll go through that briefing and start getting people used to that briefing and the way it's given. So Sinclair was in a different form and gave it a little bit different way. I gave it at a region meeting, and I had the national president and Jerry Saunders sitting there, so it was, again, trying to get all of the South Atlantic Coast region people up to speed. So again, a little different slant on that, because when you look around that audience and when you look around Sinclair's audience that he talked to, you have different kinds of people with different experiences. So when you give this brief, you kind of have to remember who your audience is, and you can take the basic words that are on the slide and you can then work with them for either their interests or for their level of experience. So that's what we need to work on. And that's where I hope when we go through this brief, probably next month, we'll start doing it, that you ask some questions, because you should have a good idea from some previous congressional briefings, what are the interests of your mocks, so to speak. So that's what we want you to ask those questions. What Sinclair can't answer, I'm sure somebody else can. So Sinclair and Scott are here. I'll be here. John will be here. So we'll be glad to try to work through that. So that's kind of an assignment for the next meeting here we have. And then I have to ask Luke, what do we have planned for our training, or do we want to start training for the virtual next week? Do you have anything else?
So next week, we are planning on going through two things primarily. One is the legislative calendar. I know for a lot of you folks, that's not exactly groundbreaking information. I know most of you follow this already, just in case we have any new volunteers. We'll cover that. Scott Sund has been kind enough to, he's going to tell us a little bit using the slide that he used before, or a couple of slides. I'll add a little bit to that. The second thing is, what's the difference this time around with a divided Congress and with some new rules in the House? Those things could impact the way that we conduct our advocacy this year. What's that going to look like? What are going to be the obstacles to getting bills passed, so on and so forth. That's something that we do want to talk about a little bit at length, because that could really be something that we run into in the coming months. In fact, as you all know, the debt ceiling battle is supposed to play out by June, I think. So, you know, that's something else that's going to be very big on Congress's plate, in addition to us advocating for things that we care about. So that's going to be kind of the training for next week.
Okay, so Sinclair, you have a comment? Your hand's up?
Yeah,
You have your hand raised?
I was just going to offer to everyone, anytime you have a question, when you read through the maritime policy, please let me know. Me or Scott Sund, and amazingly, Scott, you look just a lot like Don Giles for some reason in one of the pictures, but I don't know. It's fun of teams. But do you have any
I always see a picture of Scott.
I see two of Don Giles, but one of them is labeled Scott Sund, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway, please ask questions. If you have, if you don't agree with something, that's good too. I had a fairly lengthy conversation with the folks from HII who liked the overall document but disagreed with our comment about shipyard capacity. And that was great. That means they read it, number one. And like any document, as soon as the ink dries, it's out of date or something has changed. So having that conversation is a good thing. So please, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you say you don't like something in it or you have a question. Over.
So just let me ask you a second, maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody else knows, but with the closure of the docks up in the Northwest, Puget Sound and et cetera, why wouldn't that go into the total look at shipyards and capacity, or was HII just thinking about their own?
HII was only talking about the issues they have inside of the commercial one. They weren't talking about the public shipyard. The public shipyards have got enough problems of their own. And their comment was this: we can develop or we can build, you know, more, but we don't have the people. It's a people issue, and we don't have the welders, we don't have the pipe fitters, we don't have the people that are needed, and that is, of course, something that you hear everywhere, no matter what industry you're in. The only one I think that's laying people off is the software industry or the online, you know, Amazons and the Microsofts and whatnot. But everybody else is having a hard time finding people.
Okay. So long as we're on the subject, anybody else have any questions about the maritime policy? Has everybody able to get their hands on it? It's online. You can download the PDF. And you can also get the brief, right, Sinclair? I mean, I know you guys sent it to me, but I would presume, is it also on the web somewhere?
So I'm putting it up on Quorum, but I did email it, I think, to everyone. Everyone should have it. If you don't currently have it, just let me know. I'll send it back out. And like I said, I am also going to put it up on Quorum. I also wanted to mention that we've got a lot of great feedback from Capitol Hill staffers regarding the maritime policy statement. I got it out to as many staffers as I could. A lot of folks we already know, but reached out to a lot of new folks as well. They really enjoyed it. I could see from their comments that they did read it, as Sink was saying, and they responded with some questions. That's led to some follow-up. I'm actually going up on the Hill tomorrow to talk to some folks about Coast Guard pay parity. There's interest in trying to get that started again. Last year, it just didn't make it across the finish line, unfortunately. So anyway, Tremendous feedback. And oh, one last thing, if you want me to mail you physical copies, let me know. Just send me an email with how many copies you need, the best address to send it to, and I will send it out there. Al Wagner, I think you've got the copies that I sent, and hopefully everybody else that requested it received them, except for Don. I think you just asked me this week to mail them, so I'm going to mail those out to you tomorrow, Don. So there's that
Yeah,
option
that's
too.
my fault. I forgot to ask. We just had our first brief with a new member today.
Okay.
Axel Spence, and I'll just interject that right now. Mitch McConnell, one of our veterans in the Congress, he was former helo pilot, a doctor, and I found out in briefing the deputy chief of staff today, he was the guy, if you remember that Marine commercial that ran about 7 years, he was the model Marine on that thing. And I think we got a good guy here. He's on more committees than any other congressman, including the Armed Services Committee, Foreign Affairs, and Science and Technology, among a few others. And so I think we got a good guy there. We invited him to speak through the Deputy Chief of Staff today at our youth program awards ceremony in May. So that went very well.
Great. Okay,
There's a
again,
report on
we said at
court.
our last meeting, no problem
Thank
with
you, Don.
getting off and running on catching people as you can. It's called catch as you can, or catch as can, and get started on the, just remember, we make sure you send your report in that you've done that so that we can beginning to compile the effort. And so I presume we're still reporting that in quorum. Luke, correct? Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that report went in today.
okay, good. Okay, so RVPs, any comments on either the virtual new member outreach, giving a brief, or issues in your area? So I'll just let you either raise your hand or speak and see what you want to do. Don't everybody, okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we get a lot of support out of our regional vice president, who mandates for all the councils that if they don't have a designated legislative affairs vice president, that the council president must fill that role. So we kind of use that sort of as a impetus for them to recruit within their own district. I have tried to personally recruit within various councils and haven't been very successful, mainly because we have quite a few small councils which just don't have the numbers of people. So typically the council president or his designated representative, maybe the vice president, will fill in for that role, and they generally attend the call-ins for the various fly-ins and stuff. The other thing that we have is in some cases, we have districts that overlie several councils. And what I typically do is I designate a lead council, and then the other councils that have overlap into that congressional district, I designate them as the backup councils. That's the way I have one council that is kind of in charge of the message, and then the other councils can join in, because what I want to try and avoid is multiple councils approaching a congressman with slightly different messages, and you don't always know how that's gonna work out. So especially in the Seattle area, where we have a number of councils and that have overlapping on those districts, we have a lead council and then a backup or a secondary council, not to dissuade them from participating in the phone calls or the meetings, but just so that I have one council that I can count on to carry, and I know what message is going to a specific congressman. And we've had a number of changes in the councils around the region since the first of the year. But I've just gotten the spreadsheet from our region president, which lists all of our officers in each of the councils, and I'll be using that to reach out to them and to get the districts organized in advance of the virtual fly-in. So that's what's going on with us. And oh, by the way, the Bremerton Council is hosting Representative Kilmer on their monthly meeting in March. So if at the national level you've got any questions or anything that we need to ask Representative Kilmer, either publicly or off to the side, we can do that, and I'll be providing you with a rundown on the results of that meeting and he volunteered. He came to us and said, "Hey, I haven't been to the council in a while, and I want to come in and speak to the council." So we'll see what message he has. I'm sure it'll have something to do with the changes in the Congress and the different rules and some of that sort of stuff. So that's where we are.
Great.
Thanks, Mike. And we'll send you possibly some questions. I think you guys have it covered, but for Rep Kilmer, we'll see if there's anything to add. And thanks a lot for just all the work you're doing there. You guys have some heavy hitters in that region on some very important committees. So thank you very much for just being on top of that. I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to jump on.
That's fine. I was just going to say it's great work as per usual, Mike. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Okay, Marilyn. You always have something to say.
I've tried to build up a pool of names within our region who can serve as constituents that I can actually name when setting up a meeting. So I'm strategizing right now. By the end of this week, I hope to reach all the new members of Congress in my district, but I'd like to incorporate a constituent to be represented in this initial meeting. I think that'd make for a much more powerful initial presentation. All of our MOCs in the Pacific Central region are second and third tier, but I look at them as equally as important as first tier. They include 3rd District Kevin Kiley, John Duarte of the 13th District, and then taking over Jackie Spears' spot is another new person, Kevin Mullen. So I bring those names up if there's any kind of synergistic benefit to reaching out to some other Congress people. Or I always try to leverage these relationships. Example is taking Garamendi's Energizing American Shipbuilding Act and then naming all the 32 people that are already signed, so to get new people to sign on. So I'd like our region to be more robust, but that is what it is. I take every opportunity at the region meetings to spend some time talking about where we are, where we're going. And thus far, I have 20 people who will lend their name somehow to this effort.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's all a matter of trying to line them up and getting them energized. But those are the 20 people that I want to be able to call on whenever we have an emergency. What do you call those?
Rapid response.
Rapid
campaigns.
responses, right?
Yeah.
That I can get a hold of to reply.
And actually,
And I'm doing the same thing as Mike, trying to figure out best how to not have all these overlapping relationships, and then if they're not sending out the same or a consistent message, that it could not make for a very good impression on our new members. I am going to be at Sierra Space.
Very
So
good.
if you have anything about the congressional breakfast, I'd like to know about that.
I'll let you know. Once again, as I was saying at the very beginning, we're finalizing the other speakers that we have, but Congressman Whitman will be there. We have at least one name locked in. And I wanted to mention, Marilyn, as you were saying, the new members in your region are second and third tier and so on and so forth. I will mention that with this new open amendment process in the House, it's pretty important that we speak to all of these folks, because any one of them could potentially introduce an amendment. And if they don't know what the Jones Act is or why it's important, if they don't understand why we need, some of our asks for Marine Corps Navy, Coast Guard, whatever the case may be, they might end up signing on to something that they don't fully understand. For regions that don't have a lot of bandwidth, we're still going to focus on those top tier, those first tier folks. But Maryland, since I know you're able to reach more than just the first tier, it is important that you get those second and third tier folks, because they could be pulled along on something that they don't fully understand, maybe some amendment that would create waivers that undermine the Jones Act. And, you know, they're new, they don't know what the Jones Act is without
I
you
know,
telling
they
them.
can make the difference. They can be a
Exactly,
deciding
exactly.
vote.
Correct. So, yeah, no, everybody's important.
Okay, so those are two great reports, guys. Don't be bashful. Anybody
Luke,
else?
Excuse me, will we be able to obtain Navy League members for any congressional district that we might request? A list of Navy League members?
We should be able to get you that information. It's not going to be as airtight as this new system that we're getting at the end of this year. So next year's Hill Surge is going to be a lot more efficient. This year, you're going to get, similar to before, a list of names that should all be in that district, but you're going to find a couple that lie outside. And I'm sorry, that's kind of just the way the system currently is. But send us a district where you need names, and we will do our absolute best to get you those names. I'm sorry, we just don't have the best database for that at the moment, but we're here to help throughout the Hill Surge. Let us know. We'll do everything we can.
Thank you.
Okay. Surely somebody else has some interesting things to say. I don't want to.
Don Giles over in Georgia, I'll jump in. I already made a report on a meeting with the new member of Congress, Mitch McConnell. He is a doctor also. I've got one other new member, Mike Collins, here in Georgia. Only got 6 Navy League members in his district. I've reached out to 5 of them. And I agree with what Marilyn was saying about marrying constituents with every member of Congress. I've got 4 out of the 16 here in Georgia that are not assigned yet, but I'm trying to match those up. And there's only one place where there's an overlap with the same member down on the coast here in Georgia. So it is important to have a lead council where you have that in places like, the Bay Area out in California, down in Miami, where you might have several councils that have the same rep. And I will be, at least I offered to help over in Alabama with some of their briefings. They have 2 members over there, the replacement for Senator Shelby, and in Alabama, 5 Dale Strong, who is on Science and Tech, and I believe Homeland Security as well. So I'll want to get that list of members over in Alabama again this year, Luke, whenever you're working on that. And I would like to have a Georgia list too, because I just have the Atlanta list right now, and so it'd be helpful to get the list for the other 3 councils here in Georgia.
I'll make a note of that, Don. So you'd like to get a list of council members in Alabama and Georgia?
Yes, yeah, the ones who reside are listed under the state. Because I only have the Atlanta council for Georgia.
Okay.
And I'll need that Alabama list to help over there.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, let me talk to membership. I'll try and get that for you as soon as I can.
Okay.
This is Al Wagner from the Dallas Council, Lone Star region, and we have 7 new members in Texas. We've divided them up, 3 in the Dallas area, 2 in Houston, and 2 in the Austin, San Antonio area. And so I have my first meeting scheduled now Thursday with a new member from East Texas, Nathaniel Moran. And the other one that I had previously met is actually before he was elected is Keith Self. And Keith was very receptive. And he has also been, the Dallas Council is participating in National Defense Briefing Series And Keith has attended the last two of those here in the Dallas area. So I think he's on board with us. So I'm not going to try to contact him at this point. And then I'm trying to get the other one in Dallas. I've got to follow up with Houston, Austin, San Antonio about the other 4 members, and hopefully, but Ted Tarver in Houston acted like he had a personal relationship with 2 of them. And so then we're down to 2 more. So hopefully we'll get them done in the not too distant future.
Jim, you're on mute.
You're right. You can see my lips moving. Thanks, Al. I appreciate that very much. Yep, trying to multitask over here. So it's been an eventful day. I flew my wife up to Virginia in my airplane, and on my way back, I couldn't get home at 4 o'clock, so I stopped at a little airport in North Carolina so that I could join you guys at 4 o'clock. And so my airplane's sitting out on the ramp, and I'm sitting in their little lounge. You got to be mobile in this world. I didn't think you would appreciate me. I've talked to you from the car, but I was worried about the connectivity if I tried to log in from the airplane. So,
I was going to complain about running errands today, but I can't compete with what Jim just said.
So
Bill James wants to know what kind of airplane, Jim.
It's called a Beechcraft Sierra. It's a single engine retractable gear. Goes about 130 or 35 miles an hour. We think of it knots. I have to convert to miles per hour for you land lubbers. I got no feedback on that, huh? Okay.
Bill says nice, and he says he's a pilot as well. Just so you know, Bill James also a pilot.
And Jim, this Don, I'm jealous. I wish I could be doing that too. That's a great thing.
I know. It's fun. So Jim Summerand, anything from up in Michigan?
So can you hear me okay, Jim Abbott?
Yep.
Okay, so I was at from 8:30 to 3 o'clock today. I was at a shipbuilding conference in Detroit. We had Master Chief Petty Officer from Virginia class subs over here from DC, and some people from Groton, Connecticut. They were talking about the Virginia class subs, the fact that, and the Columbia class subs, the fact that they need to increase production. So it's kind of a pretty interesting, 5.5, 6 hour session, trying to link people with the Virginia class submarine program with the with contractors in this area. And I think they're heading out that whole team is from the Navy is heading out to California next, but they're making their circuit to try to promote. They don't have enough capacity. They don't have enough suppliers. They don't have enough people to increase production. And Congresswoman Haley Stevens was there, which I thought was over to Luke. You might want to put her on your radar, because she looks like she's friendly to shipbuilding. But we talked about shipbuilding overall within the United States. Over.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thanks, Jim. Mm-hmm.
Ed Crippage, you got anything you want to contribute?
I'm sorry. No, not today.
Okay. Anybody else is welcome to speak up. Otherwise, that we're down to. I think that's all of everything's on our agenda.
Jim, this is Scott Sant.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things from our Mid-Atlantic region, our Northern Virginia Council. 2 weeks ago, we had at the headquarters, there was a breakfast with the Maritime Administrator, Rear Admiral Ann Phillips. She came and spoke to us in the morning, and she gave a nice little speech. What was interesting, I sat at a table with a bunch of foreign officers, and they all had copies of the Maritime Policy booklet, and they were asking me, peppering me questions right and left. So these foreign officers are all from their consulate buildings, And so I was very interested to see how many. And then I saw a lot of foreign officers when we did the rollout a few weeks before that too, that were in the audience there. So it was kind of an interesting group of people that keep showing up at the Navy League headquarters events. That there's a significant number of foreign officers that are trying to find out what is America doing and what are they doing in terms of building the shipyards and building ships and things like that. The other thing is my original hometown is up in Wisconsin, and Marinette is where Fincantieri is building the new FFG Constellation class. And I don't know if they're having as much troubles as the other shipyards are right now. When you go to their website, they've got a lot of contracts. And I know Vice Admiral Rick Hunt is the president of operations up there. He's an old shipmate of mine when we were on the battle group staff together. And so I think Marinette may be an exception where people are having trouble, because they seem to be going very well in terms of manning up their shipyard. Right now, Congress is in recess this entire week, so everybody went back home. And we still don't have a president's budget yet, so that means we don't have the DoD budget or any of the service budgets yet. But after this gets done, I think things are going to pick up here very, very quickly. And as you can start seeing in the early bird in the news, local news here, there's reports from War Games, and they're getting ready to get the hearing cycle started to spool up here to have people come in and give hearings. So I think all of the people out there in the regional areas, you're going to start getting calls here pretty quickly here on information and requests for, can you give me a little bit more information on this and that and the other thing? That's all I have. Thank you.
No, that's great. Super.
Hey, Scott. This is Rich Berkowitz. I had a question regarding Representative Jennifer Kiggins, since you're from Virginia. She's on Veterans Affairs and Armed Services. She's a new member. She took over from Representative Loria, who was a great ally of ours overall, particularly on some merchant marine issues. Any feedback that you have? In the past, I organized a roundtable, maritime roundtable with her, and there may be an opportunity to do so, despite the fact that I'm in Seattle and kind of semi-retired. Any comments about that?
Well, I don't know that much about Representative Higgins, although I think she was a naval officer also. So her background is a little bit of an unknown for me right now. Obviously, she's in a big in Loria's district, so she's got to be a big Navy supporter to that event. So I think whatever we want to give her, she will be an advocate for, because she's got a vested interest in that area. But other than that, I don't know much more. I could find some more information out and work with Luke on it. Over.
Thank you.
Let me mention very quickly that we actually contacted Rep. Kiggins' office from several directions. I spoke with her staff, and also CMS, Dr. Wills over there in the Center for Maritime Strategy, had a long conversation with her and her staff about maritime security. I think at this point they are relatively up to speed. That doesn't mean there's not more that we can do and reach out to them about. But we deliberately had a meeting to kind of like deconflict, because we were just contacting her office from a number of different directions. We actually asked John Kaskin kind of stand down, because this was one of the new members he was going to reach out to as well. So Rep. Kiggins, we have been in contact with multiple times. As soon as she took over Laura's district, we all just kind of swarmed in. But just to let you know, we've reached out to her, and we're kind of just taking a little step back now, because we might have overwhelmed her office.
Hey, Luke, any luck with Kelly?
So they said that they'll get in touch with us when he comes back from this break. As Scott mentioned, they're out of session this week. They come back next week. I've got it on my list sync. I'm not going to let it fall through the cracks. You and I will get that meeting hopefully next week. So we'll just kind of stay on top of that.
Is that Kelly in Arizona?
Trent Kelly.
He's down in Alabama or Mississippi, one of the two southern states.
Yeah, the only,
Mississippi.
yeah, the only thing you have to worry there is Mardi Gras is coming up, and Wicker and Kelly and the Mississippi delegations, they're making a round robin trip of all the military bases in Mississippi right now. They've been doing it for a couple of weeks, and I don't know if they're coming back when they're coming back with all that information. They're on kind of a finding tour. I know that because my headquarters that I work for in the DoD is down in Vicksburg, and so we've been seeing CODELs and stuff come through. ERDIC is the big engineering research development center for the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps of Engineers is a big deal in Mississippi and Alabama and the South. Mardi Gras is coming.
Yeah. Mike, do you have your hand up? You're just waving. Okay. So any other comments? Go ahead, Marilyn.
Oh, I'm sorry, Admiral Harris. I did not pick up on what exactly HII disagreed with in that maritime policy statement.
So HII believe that both CNO, SECNAV, and others who have commented about the need to increase shipyard capacity and shipbuilding capacity, they said that we've all oversimplified the issue, that they've got room, but they don't have the people. And you can create more room, but you don't have the people, it doesn't matter. So welders, pipe fitters, and different types of folks that would prefer to go work at Dunkin' Donuts or someplace else where the pay is about the same and the danger is less. That's what's happening.
Okay, so in other words, capacity is not the issue.
It's fulfilling the capacity. It's manpower issue to them. It's a manpower.
It's labor.
Well, yeah, if you don't mind me mentioning also, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario because, all right, so they don't have the people now to do the job, but you're not going to have the people unless Congress provides consistent funding to ensure that there is enough shipbuilding so that people don't lose their job 10 years from now when the ships stop being built. So, you know, you do have to provide that incentive for future workers to get into that industry and say, oh, guess what? I will actually have a job consistently and I won't be laid off 5 years from now when the ship gets built. But
yeah, but the yards are there, the facilities are there, the yards are there. It's the people who aren't there.
Definitely need those people, and those people need consistent projects to work on.
It's really not that simple. I mean, Ingalls in Pascagoula, they had half of their whole shipyard was washed away, and they didn't go back to reconstruct it. If they had the business, they could go and put more buildings and fabrication lines in that particular facility. But they downsized to meet what the workload was, which is basically what Luke said. You know, they'll size their infrastructure to the business. And so if the Navy shows that they're going to be increasing the business, they can gradually facilitize and gradually build the labor force back, but they can't do it immediately. So it's a complicated matter. I've just got two short items. One is there is going to be an in-person sail-in that's going to be conducted in Washington, D.C. So for folks that are merchant marine related, if they're interested in participating in that sail-in, let me know, and I'll pass on the information to Jim Patty, who is organizing it for 30 March. So that's when they're going to have an in-person sail-in. They'll be focusing on merchant marine manpower issues, in particular because there's a shortfall in the labor force there, as was already mentioned in other areas. And I think what I read today is that the president's budget is supposed to be dropped on 9 March. I don't know if that was mentioned while I was cut off, but that's when the action will be beginning. There was a note that I saw that there's an expectation that the president's budget will be the biggest budget ever submitted. So that's looking good from one perspective, but of course that if they just kept it up with inflation, it would have to be bigger than what it was. So we'll see what that really means. So with respect to real growth, that's all I have.
Okay. Again, I guess anybody on this team who happens to get to the Washington area, just let Luke know you as being part of this team can go ahead and qualify and go to that shipbuilding breakfast. It's always a great thing, and we got Whitman and his sidekick from Connecticut, right, who usually always show up.
Yeah, they're usually there. And I'm going to send the formal invitation to everyone that's in this meeting so you can send it to your member of Congress. I'll get that out to you either tonight or first thing tomorrow.
Okay, anything else? Well, otherwise, doesn't look like we lost anybody because we moved to Tuesday. That's good. We skipped the holiday yesterday anyways. So next Tuesday, the 28th, we'll have some training and Scott will talk about the congressional calendar and some of the other insights he has. And we'll put out the rest of the agenda during the week. Any final comments?
I have one. This is Bill James up in Minneapolis. So if anybody is feeling hardship this evening, our forecast for the next 26 hours is 22 inches of snow coming down. So little perspective there. If anybody's struggling in their respective geographies, we're looking at 2 feet in the middle of the highway up here. So that is our world.
I presume all of the grocery shelves are empty.
Yeah, there's no peanut butter, eggs, or milk left. Yes, correct. Bread is gone.
It's amazing.
Where was that location?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah, the whole, if you look at it, it's coming clear across the Northwest and across the upper Midwest, and
it will be in Pennsylvania, New York, Boston, New Jersey, and New England by Sunday. So we're just passing the trash.
Well, I know you don't feel sorry for me, but the leading edge is here because I had a smooth flight from South Carolina up to Manassas. Going back, I could not find an altitude where I didn't have light, moderate turbulence in my airplane that only weighs 2,500 pounds. So
that's pretty light.
Yep, I got a little bit of, it's a good thing the seatbelt worked. So. Okay, thanks for your comment. And everybody have a nice rest of the week. Hope we'll see you next Tuesday. And stay safe, dry, and warm. Bill, take care.
Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Oh, hang up. Maybe this is it.